Well, I think that there's an awful lot to learn from people who are great achievers in whichever realm they are. And in terms of business leaders, usually the most underrepresented are women. And in the Baltic and beyond, there are very many women that I think have a great story to tell. First of all, about their own businesses or the areas that they're involved in. And secondly, in finding out how these women actually, what is the world of a woman in a male business environment, because 90% of the time, if not more, you are in an extremely male environment. And I know that women's stories are special. So for this particular series, for Leaders Ask, I am delighted to be able to interview women leaders and see how they see the world. Ilze, I'm thrilled to have you today as a good person to talk to about cars, about life, about the world, and I hope also about fun. But let us start with maybe the more serious part. We both come from the automobile industry in one way or the other. And if I were to take a look at the trends in the marketplace, it looks like the automotive sector is going under a massive paradigm shift. If I look at the United States, you know, the sort of the trailblazer in automotive manufacturing of the 20th century, they both have volume problems. They have to some extent also a huge challenge regarding innovation. We have Japan plugging along properly with innovation and volumes, and I'm always delighted to see Volkswagen and Toyota vying for the largest, being number one in the world as an automotive company. We're looking at China. I assume you may have seen them in one of the last automotive exhibitions, who are clearly declaring themselves as a part of this competition. And India is quietly also trying to elbow its way in with cars. And Europe, especially Germany, seems also to be under a lot of pain and a lot of self-doubting about where the automobile industry may or may not be going. What do you think? Where is the automotive industry going?
Thank you, Baiba, for inviting me. Really a great pleasure to be with you and spend this talk together. You know, you mentioned there's so many actually continents, countries, and industry directions. Maybe, first of all, I'd like to say we are like this huge domino game, you know, in the car industry. We actually depend on each other hugely. Just recently, you mentioned China. I think that's an important player which has come up in the field for the last few years. In, for example, Norwegian market, we see that China in 1 year acquired more than 15% market share, which is incredible for such a niche product, because they mostly have e-mobility, right? And right now, again, we can see that China is entering also different European countries, and they are supporting their products in order to have them in Europe. So the price war, which is happening between the newcomer and existing European brands, is huge. Therefore, this is one part of the game. The other one is that Europe needs to be in China as well, because that is a huge market for us. And if you're not in China, you're not anywhere. And that's another story. So how to actually balance this game and this relationship in order to have this win-win is the biggest question mark at the moment. I think from Audi perspective and Volkswagen perspective, to be in China means actually to remodel the whole manufacturing, thinking everything. So we have a lot of this customer-centric approach, a lot thinking about what does customer want, and learning about persons there and learning how the car can become, you know, already not just a car, but actually your home in a way, or a second home, right, to give everything. And so I think the industry is, as you said, in such a crossroads of who will win in a way, but at the same time, we need all of them to be there. In Europe, we also see that currently brands are still fighting to be number one, but of course the profitability and margins are becoming more and more stable value for the companies. Sure. So it's not only about volume anymore, it's also about who's going to earn more, because you have to invest incredibly a lot into new technologies and into the future.
So does that have a lot to do with innovation at the end of the day?
Definitely. I mean, you have to innovate. You have to, first of all, of course, sustainability. I'm sure we're going to touch e-mobility and all that, but sustainability in itself is an expensive technology. We can see that the car is so much going on electricity and also on new sensor systems, which costs a lot of money. So companies, in order to succeed, to be customer-centric, needs actually a lot of cash. In order to have a lot of cash, you have to think and secure the margins. So I think that those relationships will definitely differ. Everybody still has an ambition to be there, but probably more naturally divide the market at one point.
I'm happy you mentioned sustainability, because this is clearly one of the largest areas of concern around the world, because sustainability mainly talks about how we can affect climate change, and the automobile industry is certainly charged with being huge polluters. Therefore, how can one reduce pollution? But at the same time, if I take a look at a younger generation, it certainly doesn't seem to be interested in cars the same way that my generation was. You're not interested in investing in automobiles anymore. You're looking more at car sharing opportunities, where you have a great car that it is as low impact on the climate as possible, and that you can give back, for example. So where do you think that sustainability may take the car industry?
Sure, the car sharing, the new trend, or now already a few years, which we see around, is definitely something we need to take into consideration. But there are also, of course, outcomes of it, which we have learned by now. First of all, that in the premium market, definitely the car sharing share is much more lower, because you still, as a premium customer, want to have your own space and your own privacy. Whereas also you can see the countries where maybe distribution of living is more than here in Latvia. When you have more cities than just one, then also there the car sharing share is not so high, because you need to commute from one place to another. Also, maybe family aspect is quite important, because you need the place for, you know, things simply, and you're not okay to take your kid's car seat all the time from one place to another, or use the foreign one. So there are a lot of aspects which actually could argue against that's not killing car industry. That's maybe giving a new possibility, because where we see car sharing also as a very good partnership is that we sell them our newest models, and you as a end customer can try our newest models and then decide which one you want to purchase. So I think in those kind of shorter distances, in those fast movement, and when you maybe are in between of one to another decision, that's a good solution. But this doesn't show currently that it would totally, let's say, take away the regular car sales.
Okay, but then let's go back to the pollution aspect. It seems to me that the world is betting really strongly on electrification. We're looking both at motors as well as networks to be able, you know, to do the electrification of vehicles. When I was in the oil business, it was very interesting to see more about opportunities in hydrogen motors, ethanol, all of these kinds of things. Where do you think that, you know, is electrification, at least for the automobile industry, now just a first step? Do you think there will be something that may change in the, you know, 5 to 10 to 15-year outlook? How do you and how do you look at this opportunity?
Sustainability itself from car point of view is also divided in quite many aspects. First is what you mentioned about the e-mobility. Of course, e-cars, for example, 5 years ago, there were a lot of more questions about e-cars than there are today. People are used to technology. They start to recognize, they start to test and actually buy them, even though in our markets we're still like really tiny percent in the total market on e-cars, but still it's growing year on year, basically more than 100%.
Really?
So but it's still only about 5-6% of a total market, so it means it's still very tiny. We need to work a lot on educating end customer on what are the benefits and what is the total cost of ownership at the end, and where is the benefit. because the pricing is something we as manufacturers need to work on. The pricing still not always is the best, and currently the products are becoming more and more available. That's one part. I think another part is definitely the chain behind the car itself, the whole process. First of all, if we compare the battery life cycles, if we compare the recycling of the battery, then that has developed in the recent 6 years in extreme speed. So basically with every new model we have already much more sustainable and green battery itself, and also the recycling process itself.
You know, as a customer to some extent, I know that all cars are much more driven by high technology, and if anything fails, it's not like you are going to replace some sort of a small plug. It's a major thing. Are you saying now that if there are problems with batteries for motors, it is easier actually and lighter and cheaper to change, let's say, components, or to change batteries for motors as well?
Yeah, I think what you mentioned about lighter, that is what technology is becoming more and more, because it's simply becoming simpler. Obviously, it's like with everything in the beginning, like a computers, right? It was so heavy and so terrible, and now we're having this really nice tiny laptop. Of course, what is very important is also all the companies which are kind of as a partners for car manufacturers. Also there, the sustainability is on a very high agenda, as a procurement process is mainly looking at the ESG perspective also when you look at the partnerships, and so that all the chain is actually taking care of the sustainability aspect, not just the end product. And this is where we need to educate people and tell about it more and more in order to have this comparison between combustion engine and the e-cars.
Well, I'm quite sure that the combustion engine is still going to be around for a very long time, though
yeah,
that it's
definitely. Also,
politically
I think from
incorrect to say.
Used car perspective,
Yes.
there will always be a certain segment with that, and the ambition, I think, with EU regulations is not to kill that at all, but it is to decrease at the moment. And we have such countries as Norway, which has said for the next year they already stopped the combustion engine sales.
Yes.
Whereas, for example, Audi and Volkswagen says that the new model will not be produced as an IC starting from 2030. So it's in just basically 6 years from now.
That's true.
It's not very far away. So we need to adopt, and we need to educate and adopt all the other environment for that.
A lot of the let's say, electric cars have key components, if not a lot of the components that are necessary to drive these cars come out of China as well. And in the ESG, there's also the S part, which usually includes human rights questions. And I know that from my work in the oil industry on corporate sustainability issues, when you went through the supply chain of any process that one is involved in, you will also be challenged with human rights potential violations in the supply chain of whatever is happening, and usually it is connected to labor in challenging countries. Mm-hmm. How much of an aspect is that actually addressed to in the world that you live in?
Extremely important. We noticed that during COVID. We noticed how the whole chain basically collapsed.
Yeah, this is true.
In different levels, and suddenly everybody knew that car has sensors. Sure. Because cars were simply not produced, and they were not produced because China couldn't deliver certain things. Yes. And what happened, I think, then was adoption towards the new situation. We suddenly found new markets. We suddenly found new ways, new channels. Where to get the same product. Yes, it took more time. Yes, it took more process to kind of get into this, but it also was more expensive in some cases. And I think here it is the answer. It is extremely important that we balance the location where that is produced with the price for the end customer. And I think that might come from the pressure of regulations, because at some point of time, we also know that, for example, when war in Ukraine started, we had a very similar situation. I actually didn't know how many manufacturing happens for the car
Components,
sensors
yeah, I
and
didn't know either,
components in
yeah.
Ukraine. I didn't know that, and I had a map presented to me by Volkswagen AG where it was so many locations, and some of them still kept working, but they actually were not in the war area, but people went
Sure.
to the war, to
Sure.
participate in the war. So there were no people in the rooms, right? And this was a very interesting thing that we actually don't know how much of things we consume are produced in those markets where you just mentioned, which are probably not according to any regulations, right? So I don't think it's a fast thing to solve. I think it's like a very huge task for the world, to be honest, to look at and and to evaluate the risks.
How long have you been in the business now, cars?
Now it's the only area I've been to industry, so it's going to be a bit more than 20 years now.
What excites you about the business? What do you really like about it? I like car design. I'm a design nut, so if it's about cars, it's about that. I know for lots of men, it's about horsepower. What excites you?
I like the content of the industry. I like the diversity of industry. I think I've been myself not in this position from the day one, obviously. I was in so many different layers. I've been in the dealership. I've been directly involved into customer service and marketing. I've been also leading a small dealership. I've been a marketing manager. I've been in sales teams. I've been in a brand strategy and now leading the company. And that's an exciting industry to be with because there's so many components which make that end customer happy. And you can come from sales, marketing, after sales, logistics, you name it. And I think that's what has kept me here. Also the brands, of course, the variety of brands is very high. And you mentioned design, so pick the one, and you can pretty much also nationalities. The manufacturers are in so many countries.
So you like the puzzle of putting the
I think
the car business
that's
together.
the color of the game in a way. Yes, it's how that industry is put together from so many different aspects.
I must say that on a personal basis and in all other aspects, it is for sure one of the exciting business areas. Mobility in general is a fantastic area to be involved in, but it's an extremely male-dominated area, or male opinion, if not males themselves, dominated, from how the cars are designed to lots of other aspects. Although, which most people don't know, is it's usually women who make a decision on which car is actually purchased in the family. At least in North America, and I'm pretty sure it's the same in Europe. Other parts of the world, I'm not so sure. But in this one, this is where it is. Do you see it very similarly? Because, I mean, if I take a look at what dealerships were like for very many years of all automobile brands, they're usually owned by men. Very rarely are women involved unless they're wives, daughters, or other members of the family that are there. What is it like to be in such a male-dominated environment?
Sure, that is a male-colored business, but meanwhile, I say that we are living now in times when we shouldn't much speak about a gender, rather about really competencies. And I can say that also from experience I see around. I think you can still divide it in a certain levels of professionalism, meaning C-suite, where you would still see not so many female leaders on the highest level of the management in car business. And I just actually experienced that seeing an event for Volkswagen Group just this year, where you still had mostly gray suits for men, not gray suits for women.
Yes.
And meanwhile, I think I have so many great examples of being leaders female in this industry that I have a very big belief that this is changing. It's not going to change in the future, but it is changing right now, and it will influence the future.
What do women bring to the table for the automotive business?
You know, as from all the research, they say that women have a little bit different approach towards creativity, different approach towards the decision-making process, by maybe taking into consideration more opinions and maybe being the facilitator more rather than the end decision maker. So things like this, I think, is where we balance each other very positively. And that's also what I see. I have great examples of good female leadership in Audi, in Volkswagen, international level, and also locally, I would say. We are representing highest management here in Baltics, actually mostly by women.
Good to hear. But I must say that if you look at it, you know, again, superficially, you clearly have not had any challenges really professionally to be where you are. You've worked your way through a certain pipeline to be where you are. And you certainly, from my experience, are supportive, if not passionate, about women in top leadership positions and what it actually takes to get there. Why do you care about equality? Or do you care about equality, or is it more diversity that you care about?
You know, last years of leadership, I've been kind of shaping my own opinion on this topic, and of course it comes from learning and listening and experiencing things, what happens around. And I think it's very important that we leaders who maybe have more opportunities to speak out are the ones who are defending those values and defending those ideas, and we cannot just sit quiet and look how things are going on and just, you know, comment or criticize. So I think whatever I do, I still stand behind those opinions that leadership has to be very focused on human, and it has to be human-centric leadership with actually increasing importance of soft values, how we lead people, how we work with people, what is that kindness, for example, becomes a new trend into business values as well, not just the dominance and hierarchy. And I think that's where maybe I can bring in my 5 cents into dialogue. And I like to also follow some leaders and examples who are really kind of eager to prove it and to show it. And I think by doing this together, that can happen. But I think it's important that we keep in mind that the psychology or this safety at work, psychological safety at work, is a very important asset now to motivate people, to motivate new generation, and to get those innovative minds to make our product shine and achieve the results in the future.
If I close my eyes and listen to you, it is very much colored by what usually an American from the United States would call very Scandinavian thinking. Mm-hmm. And you've spent most of your professional life actually with the Nordic countries, in all 3 Baltic countries. How much has that actually colored your view of the world and your sense of values, if at all? Because Germans are quite different.
Yeah, I think for us, people from Baltics, it's a lot about our countries. It's a lot about our history and a lot about defending the place we're from. I think we're quite robust, and we have quite thick skin. And that also comes down to the fact that we very young experienced the independence in these countries, and we had an opportunity to study suddenly somewhere.
This is true.
Not just here. We had an opportunity to apply for jobs which you could not even dream about. So I think by being a younger generation and achieving maybe higher success in younger age makes you different as a personality and influences a lot. And yeah, we can see that differs from the old Europe, if you might call it so.
True.
And I'm not sure that I love the the weather here, but I do love the countries. So
that's very well put. The best part about the weather is the summertime. So the
Yes.
ones who, you know, are listening to us, they're the greatest summers with the most light, and it's not terribly hot and won't be as hot as very many places will be in the future.
Just a few months a year.
Tell me, there, you know, if you're leading a large group of people, which you actually do, and you're the interface for customers and for suppliers and for the company that you work for, is there a downside to being a top leader?
So we, as being an importer and wholesaler, we are more the ones who are preparing the ground for a successful product, for successful brand awareness in the market, and being all the time in a back office, as I say. We need to be there to make sure everything works smoothly. To be on a top, I always think there is no such one thing in the top. There is actually a team of people making sure that somebody can be in the top. And it's a common decisions I believe in, the actually distributed leadership I believe in, whereas where you have to have somebody who is taking decision at the end of the day when there are such situations. But of course, those challenges as sometimes those responsibilities which you have to take on your own, and you're just on your own, I think is where probably I feel the biggest difference when I'm in more operational business. Okay. Whereas again, we do have investors, we have owners, and we have the board. So there are always, you know, some level somewhere close to you.
Yes.
But of course, those moments when the decision has to be made, it's good if you have team's trust, and yeah, it's.
So you rarely feel really lonely at the top?
You know, I think it's important to find like-minded people where you can share things, and sometimes it's one-to-one with somebody, or sometimes it's some good organizations you're part of. And you can share your things, your feelings, your experiences, and learn from that, and also kind of test your ideas. But of course, the moments you're alone are more than they were when you are on an operational level, that's for sure.
This is true, but it strengthens personality.
It does. It's like a test, and as I mentioned before, to me the team is extremely, the management team I think is the core of the business itself, and all my efforts and energy is put into developing that team.
Were you able to choose the team yourself?
Now I'm in the position close to 6 years, and of course now I can say that it's dynamically changed throughout these 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who are there since the day one, and people who have changed their positions. And I think it's very obvious that we do our signature, or you can feel the signature of a top management coming in the company. Whether the idea and target has to be to change everybody, and I'm not sure, I'm not agreeing to that, but okay. The team has changed, yes.
Now, superficially, your life looks like a Cinderella story. You are very successful in your cross-border, very male-dominated business career. You have a life where you are athletically and lifestyle driven in a way that many, many people admire whom you know. You had a husband who loved and supported you and believed in everything that you did, with whom you had several wonderful children. And then after he tragically dies, you soon find a new partner who's able to support you in a similar strong way. And I could go on what this Cinderella story looks like from the outside. But what is your own version of your life story?
It's a colorful story you just told, and I think that's the story about me. It's I like to maybe say that it's like it's like a rainbow in a way, and I like to be a rainbow. And sometimes those colors are the ones we love. Sometimes those colors are the ones which make us cry, and it's just the way it is. there is a lot I do about it. There is a lot of my personality, and I like to get to know things. I like to read. I like to explore, and I like to make my life exciting. And I know that it's sometimes too much for myself and for people around me. And sometimes it's the only way how I can survive. So that's not a surprise that it's so colorful, because I'm that type of person.
Do you have core values that you've realized that you have and that actually drive your life's path?
Interesting you ask. The values, I think, are for everybody there in their lives. And I have been often thinking of this question and how funny it is that my values are very much going together with the company where I work for. And when they invited me for an interview for Möller Mobility Group, they were presenting me the values where we say we have to be caring, we have to be proactive, and we have to be, it totally fitted with my lifestyle. And I was thinking, how funny is that? So I definitely can say that caring and proactiveness is something what I find very, very close to my heart.
That certainly permeates everything you've said in this interview alone, let alone in other circumstances. But let me change the topic a little bit. When you look at people, they are actually, and you listen to how they talk about things and how they perceive things, they seem to be in three specific camps. One are the ones that are firmly looking towards the past and continue living while looking back on what there has been on the past. There are the others that are firmly rooted in the present, and they're the third ones that are driven by the future. Now, most people clearly have some mix of all three, of the past, the present, and the future. Where do you think your percentages are in this? Where are you between past, present, and future?
I can definitely say where I would like to be.
Okay, where would you like to be?
I would like to be more in present rather than I am. Really enjoy more the moment rather than run after. And I think that's maybe supporting something we discussed before of so many colorful things, right? Because that's also the dynamics of the industry is such that it pushes you forward all the time. And we're actually in business now thinking about 1-2 years ahead rather than today anymore.
So you're 50% future.
I'm a lot in the future. I'm a lot in the future.
10%
yes, and I would say that my future definitely takes over the past. And with the past, I think what I've learned through my experience is it's very important to reflect to the past and really work with the past, especially with the situations where have been leaving some maybe tragic feelings and emotions. And I think the more we work with the past, the easier we can be there, and that's that allows me maybe more and more now by years to kind of reflect to the past with more like nicer feelings rather than seeing only the black moments, and that's why I say that I'm more in the future rather than past, respecting the past and working with it much. Easiness of presence is just a beautiful thing if people manage to live the moment, and if we manage to do that with our emotions and all what we do. I think that strengthens us a lot, because a lot of the stress we do is about the future. It's a lot about what could happen rather than what is happening. And I think what I've learned is really to take step by step, to take day by day, or if we have a problem, to really take one thing after another in order to worry about 3 next ones which might happen, and that helps to actually decrease the stress level and really work on an issue.
I had at one point for several years a very high stress job. Every day was a disaster kind of a thing waiting to be managed. And when it was completed, somebody asked me, so how did you do it? And I said, says, I followed the Alcoholics Anonymous rule diligently, and that is one day at a time.
Yeah.
And I must say that if you can you get into the consciousness of one day at a time, where you say, okay, what is there right now, and what is in front of me, and what is important to me or somebody else. Usually it's actually people. You know, most people think it's work and responsibilities. I actually think it is the people around you, because at the end of the day, you're going to leave work and the environment that you're in. Most people will forget that very quickly, but the question is how you've, you know, built environments in the present, in that, you know, one day at a time. But I think that past still plays a large role. One is one's own past, clearly, but the other one is sort of a broader historical past, which in our day and age plays a massive role. I mean, we are living in a time where there are more wars around the world than there ever have been on the globe, at least the ones that have been recorded somewhere. And most of them are about different understandings of the past, whether they are political past or social past or religious past in the great majority. Now, your late husband, Martiņš Ķibilds, was a very unique, I'd say, historian. But as a filmmaker and as a journalist who was very keen on figuring out moments and individuals that were keys to Latvia's past. And I'm from Canada originally, though I'm Latvian, and I know I have a different view of history or departure point at looking at history than most people of my age in this part, or in Eastern Europe in general. And what I think what Martiņš did was really shine a light on the past in a very contemporary and very future-driven way. And you were clearly honoring him, but also honoring the thought behind Latvia's past to illuminate understanding and knowledge for the future. And that is why you created a project called Keys. And I would invite anybody. It's a great book, but it's not only a book. And my question would be to you, why did you do this, really? I mean, I understand honoring your late husband, that's for sure. But what is in it for you, and what is it that drove you to do this in such an interesting way?
Yeah, first of all, of course, the work my husband did was so loved by so many around, and cherished by so many around, that he and his team from the film studio have done an amazing job. And I thought, what could be the way to keep that as long as possible alive and actual? That was my first thought, which of course followed by, as you said, that it's very big honor for me to do that personally, honestly, for myself, to just be busy with something related to him. Further than that, I did it actually because of all the experience you mentioned before I have, and we have been discussing right now. There's a lot of competence I've gained from everything I did at business. And I think if any of us who live in this country could do a small thing for our country and leave like a stamp in a positive manner from something we've experienced with something we know and we know how to do, then I would really invite every manager to do that, to leave something for this country. And I choose to use my ability to manage projects actually to make and manage the best history book of nowadays, what we have. And on top of it also, we did a special material for teachers to teach this material in the schools, which was also originally thought by my husband, and he really wanted that this is not just the movies of history, which is 15 minutes long, so super easy to watch, but it would be part of the school program. And that's where I put all my energy to do it as much as I can, and I still continue doing that. So I know that there are still many schools where this has to be put in, but it's up to the teachers to use. But very many teachers know about it. And that's my vision. I think One is that I sell cars and I support Volkswagen and Audi in an international level. But what can I do as me being part of this country? What can I do as me being part of this community? And my understanding is that this is something I could do, and this is something I could leave. And let's see how that proceeds further.
Well, one sees the very well-tailored leader that you are. I think very few people know your family background, that it's actually just as grounded and steeped in Latvian history as many another, or very few actually other families that I know of. So I think you build bridges in that sense in very diverse ways, which is good.
Yeah, I think in generations to come, something, of course, is what we keep on and don't let go, right? So taking from my grandfather and my grandparents' part were Levy and everything what's related to very strong opinion on kind of, putting the signature into...
What are leaves?
Into where you are. So
what are leaves?
I think when we look at the generations of Latvians and Balts, we can see some of those being really strong and survivors. So I think the survival mode probably is what I can...
It is a people that speak also a language.
Language which...
That is a little bit different from Latvian,
yes.
if not a lot different.
Very close to Estonian.
Yeah, and the Inuit, from
yes.
what I know, also from my home country.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're alive and kicking, just so that if nobody knows, they're alive and kicking.
Yes, exactly. And that's the power, what they keep.
So you actually have in your DNA this very strong survival DNA, clearly.
Yeah, and I think this survival DNA is a great asset if we as the leaders can transform it for the future development, actually, and for the future generations. And then we do it how we all individually find the best way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Let me ask you one final thing. There's a German magazine called Spiegel, which is renowned for news and of all kinds. And lately they have started a series which I find very intriguing. And that is they ask leading women how they organize their time. Noted is the fact that I have never seen a series about men being asked about how they organize their time. And so they've already have several where the women talk about approaches. They talk about also a lot about tools that they use. And clearly, with the kind of lifestyle that you lead, you need organization. How do you organize yourself? What do you find time for and how?
I also would be interested to read those Spiegel articles. Definitely can learn something out of it. You know, there's a lot of... Okay, we have few topics now very ongoing: diversity and inclusion, which we mentioned, the sustainability and e-mobility, what we mentioned, and also balance of life, what we now come to. And when my employees mention the topic, then I always answer that, you know, the employer cannot really come up to you and give you balance of life. It's something what you must work on, and it's something what is in your heart and you feel the best.
How do you do for yourself?
And that's why I think it's purely up to us. It's up to me to organize that. And there are a few things I keep very strict into my calendar, actually. One of them is, for example, I try not to do meetings after 4 p.m.
Okay.
This means I do finish the day at 5 or 5:30, and from 3 to 5 or 5:30, I manage my emails and things which are not related to others. And that's important because when you have a meeting, you usually start a new topic and you usually have your mind going into a new thing again. And to me, it's important to have an opportunity to more or less go into those things up to middle of a day, and then last part of the day to spend more on things I can actually reflect on and do and answer and so on. And of course, that doesn't happen every day, and I'm not successful 100%, but I think that's been something you definitely cannot call me the worker until midnight. There are times you find me doing that, but we all do it sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think the main reason, or what have taught me become like that is my children, because you know, now Christmas time and recently Halloween or Easter or birthdays, it's important we do those things home, and we do something with do-it-yourself handicraft stuff, and I can't do it at 10 p.m. anymore. So I think for me it's important to be a mother who is picking up her children, at least sometimes, and that they are not the last ones in the kindergarten.
And other times you have a nanny or a grandmother?
Of course, I have a fantastic supportive environment around me, which is another trick and a tip. And I also can say that I'm the one of those leaders who have taken out all the vacation days, and I would gladly buy more from my colleagues. But actually we have a KPI, which is measuring the leftover vacation days, because we are very much, I'm a very big ambassador of saying, please use that time. And I like to travel with my kids. I like to travel with friends on my own. So for that, it's a good getaway.
Do you have good digital tools that you use to manage time?
Honestly, I've tried some like project management tools also, and we have some internally in the company. I can't say that I rely on them so much that they save my life. Okay. They're more like tools right next to me. But I think those few pillars I have that I really fix my day in a certain hours, and as you say, and as I also believe in the day by day concept is actually helping.
Ilze, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Baiba.